Donald Trump has described him as Sleepy Joe, though the Donald is not adverse to a bit of shut-eye himself, even during his own criminal trial. But there are plenty of Democrats who think President Biden is just too old at 81 to serve another 4 years in the toughest job in the world. So far, however, in the absence of Biden stepping down of his own volition, Democratic Party leaders just don't know what to do about it, and the election is now just 5 months away. The Wall Street Journal has done a deep dive into Biden's performance behind closed doors. Speaking to scores of people who were at various meetings with him, it's a disturbing picture for the leader of the free world. The Journal reports that he, quote, reads from notes to make obvious points, paused for extended periods, sometimes closed his eyes for so long that some in the room wondered whether he'd tuned out. Now, with the first Biden-Trump debate due to take place on June the 27th, which is unusually earlier, I suppose there's time that if he crashes and burns in front of the cameras, then they may well move to dump him before the Democratic convention in Chicago in August. But that could be a long shot possibility. I'm joined now by David Charter, Assistant U.S. Editor of The Times, and Bob Mulholland, who's a superdelegate. He is super, I'm sure, but that's a title, superdelegate, for Biden-Harris, and will be at the convention. David, let me come to you first. What do you make of the Journal piece? What does it tell us? Confirms what we probably thought?
Yes, hello, Andrew from Washington, D.C. I think that this story's got a lot of attention because it does play into the stereotypical view of Biden, which has become well established. What it purports to do, of course, is lift the veil on what happens in private meetings, because we don't see an awful lot of Biden being spontaneous in public anymore. He's done the least organized press conferences of any president since Ronald Reagan, which is obviously very strange in the modern media age. And he has the least meetings with members of Congress of any president since then as well. And they've been going down year by year, just adding to the impression that he's being shielded from public view. So I think what it added was to try and describe how he behaves in meetings. He rambles a lot. Apparently, he rests his eyes for long periods of time, and he appears to need prompt cards just to make very basic points. But the drawback of it is that the only people named in the article with criticisms are all Republicans. And of course, this has led to a ferocious pushback by the White House saying that it's a political hit job in an election year to reawaken this issue that had gone away a little bit. I have to say there was a lot of discussion of Biden's age earlier in the year when perhaps there could still have been a primary challenge, but now he's been selected, and I have to say to the conspiracy theorists, there is no sign at all of him being ditched by the party.
So, Bob Mulholland, if I can bring you in, there is widespread concern about Mr. Biden's age, including among many Democrats, but though they don't say so publicly, but I guess there's not much you can do about it now.
Look at polls over the last several years have said the same about Trump as well as Biden. The voters say, oh, I wish both of these candidates were younger. And as far as index cards, that was President Reagan only used index cards. Trump is always using a teleprompter. The same article could be written by the Wall Street Journal about Donald Trump and, quote, Democrats. As David said, this article today, it had former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Well, he was thrown out of Congress by his own party. The present Speaker, Mike Johnson, has an agenda, which is to elect more Republicans. So everybody should just see that as political. And let's get on with these two conventions. We got the debate, as you mentioned, and that'll be critical. And I was very pleased with President Biden's speech today in Normandy. I wish I could have been there.
Why is the debate on June the 27th? There's never been in the American election calendar a presidential debate this early.
Well, President Biden suggested that, and Trump, the candidate, immediately agreed to it. And I thought it was good because both conventions are in July and the Democrats are in August. So prior to the convention, we're going to start getting the American people's attention and obviously critical issues. And then the American people can say, yeah, I wish both of them were younger, but which one's going to be president? And I'm going to have to decide. And I think the American people will decide for President Biden and Kamala Harris.
Is there, David, some significance in this date? There never has been a debate this early. They usually take place after, well, not usually, they always take place after the conventions and when the election campaign proper has begun after Labor Day. Some people have speculated that if Mr. Biden really does crash and burn in front of the cameras, that there would still be time to press him to step down and turn the convention into a decision-making convention to choose an alternative.
I think that the choice of the dates has allowed that theory to gain traction, and absolutely no doubt it's extraordinarily early. One argument that's often made is that with the advent of postal voting and early voting, the traditional timing of the debates has actually come after some people have started voting, but that still doesn't account for this very early June date. I should add that there is a second debate planned, but that's in August. That's August the 23rd. So again, it's still a long way out from polling day on November the 5th. But these came at Biden's suggestion. The Trump side had rubbished the traditional organizing committee and said it probably wouldn't abide by them. So they had to come up with a different kind of format. And also, Trump was making a lot of play in his rallies that he would debate any time, anywhere, any place, and making it sound like he was the only one who was up for a debate. And so in a way, it was Biden calling his bluff, I think, as well.
Bob Mulholland, you have a double problem in a way, because I mean, I take the American electorate by and large, they think Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden are too old to be running for the presidency. But the polling shows they're much more worried about Mr. Biden than Mr. Trump on the age front. And you've got this added problem. It would be fine if he was running with a vice presidential candidate on the ticket that was generally popular and regarded as up to the job. But in fact, in Kamala Harris, you've got a candidate that even Democrats don't rate. It's a double hit.
Well, I'll just say this, that historically, most Americans can't even name the vice president. Even Al Gore in 2000, he ended up to be our nominee. It didn't win, but earlier that year, most Americans couldn't name the vice president.
But it matters more when your man is 81.
Well, I think we don't know yet who Trump will pick as a vice president. And I've seen in previous elections, when Bush picked Quayle back in '88, the American people said, "Who the hell is Quayle?" And then kind of just focused on the presidential candidates. And to follow up what David said, yes, Trump is the one that gone around. Let's get this debate. Let's get this debate. I think actually, given that the American people don't really pay much attention to politics until the last couple of weeks, this is an opportunity for them in the middle of summer and then after both conventions to say, okay, who's the one that we want to be? And I think ultimately we might find out that Trump's the one that falls down the steps, that Trump's the one that, like 2 months ago, couldn't remember the name of his wife, is the guy that ends up in mental with a mental issue in the American people's eyes.
Sure. The Mr. Trump has yet to say that he's met a German chancellor and a French president, both of whom are dead. Though Mr. Biden's said that. But anyway, we are where we are. David, isn't the harsh truth of this? I mean, we know there's a lot of unhappiness in the DNC. They won't say so publicly. There's nothing they can do about it unless Mr. Biden himself was to say, look, I've done enough. I said I'd be a transitional president. I've done my 4 years. I beat Trump. I've got the economy in better shape than it was. I'm going to step down. Unless he does that, there's nothing else can be done about it this side of polling day.
Yes, right, Andrew. It wouldn't be right to compare it to the British system, for example, where there are men in suits who might meet in a private room and somehow defenestrate the candidate. There's so much power in the hands of an American candidate, especially a sitting president, that we think that really there's only perhaps two people who could possibly change his mind, and they're both closely related to him. That would be Jill Biden, the First Lady, And perhaps also Biden's sister, who's been a long-standing confidant. I mean, there really is almost nobody else he really takes counsel from, apart from himself. I mean, you do have to have a tremendous ego to stand for president and to stand again in these circumstances. I mean, his line, we're going to hear this a lot, is "Don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative." And that's what the Democrats want to play. They want it to be a referendum they want it to be by Biden versus Trump. Remember Trump's record. The Republicans want it to be just like a referendum on Biden's performance in the last 4 years. And that's how it's going to be. The battle for the hearts and minds is going to shape up.
Well, we got 5 months to run. We know that Jill Biden likes being first lady, so she ain't whispering in his ear to stand down. So far, it is Mr. Biden against Mr. Trump as we head into the election in November. We'll leave it there. David Charter and Bob Mulholland, thank you for joining me today.